I'm joined today by Brett Skidmore, candidate for House of Representatives in District 35, Seat B. So, without any further ado, Brett Skidmore, tell us about yourself and how you arrived at this point where you're running for office.
How are you, Brian? Appreciate the opportunity to be before you and your audience. Brett Skidmore, born and raised in Ammon, Idaho, actually just east of Ammon. Um, my parents started a construction company back in 1958. My brother, Randy, and myself now own and operate Skidmore Construction. We have third generation that's running up through it. My son and my two nephews are doing a great job of thinking the old regime needs to be removed out of the board seats and the new third generation taking over. So I'm embracing that. I'm married to Scarlett Polson. I have three kids, 9 grandkids, and she has three children. So there's 9 of us totally together. How I decided to run for office is more of a spiritual journey for me than anything, Brian. It was a little over 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. The idea started coming through my head of maybe I ought to get involved in politics. I honestly have had no experience in politics other than whatever um, legislation that may be coming that would affect my industry, I would pay attention to. But other than that, I would meet with local officials and really not pay much attention to it. But the question came into my head about maybe I ought to get more active in it. So I sought advice from friends. Of course, I visited with Scarlett, visited with my partners at work, and went on a spiritual journey to solidify my reason. And God basically told me I have a lesson to learn in this candidacy. I have something to give to District 35. He didn't promise me I was going to win. He didn't promise me I was going to lose. He just told me I had a lesson to learn and something that I could provide to the voters of District 35. So from that, it's just been a steamroller of emotions of me going in and out of the race mentally. Got another confirmation that God told me I wasn't going to get a burning bush. That, you idiot, here's a 4x4 to the side of your head, giving you the answer. You either go or suffer the consequences. So I announced in September 2023 my candidacy for the seat, and it's just been ongoing ever since.
It's an interesting district, an interesting race. Looking back at the last race in this district, the current incumbent, he defeated Chad Christensen, who had been in the legislature and is known as someone who's very conservative, whereas the current incumbent is now, he's the chair of the Main Street Caucus, which is kind of what I call the left wing of the Republican Party, based on a lot of different metrics. But it was a close race. So it seems like voters in the district are kind of divided. What are you learning as you go out and meet people and talk to people throughout your region?
Yeah, it was between 300 and 400 votes that Chad lost in that last race. It was a really pretty tight race. One of the frustrating things about our district is it consists of somewhere around 5,500 square miles. It encompasses 5 different counties. The east and northern part of Bonneville County, Teton County, Bear Lake County, Caribou County, and of course, Bannock County. So there's a lot of area to cover and get out and meet people. And I've done some meet and greets in those areas. I'm also doing a phone campaign system so that I can actually get out and visit with people from all different from all 5 different counties. And the people are seem to be fairly educated on what Wheeler's voting record is. Some of them are not. It's kind of a split mix. And I'm sure that Representative Wheeler is a great individual. I personally do not know him, and I don't mean any ill attacks at all on his family or his business or his personal life, but he and I just don't see eye to eye on political issues. The you know, the money funding following the student has been a big topic. Kelly Goldman and I sat with a group of homeschool parents at a Christian book school that was hosting an event to get propaganda out about homeschooling. And so Kelly and I had an opportunity of meeting with some of those folks. The crisis at the borders, you know, it's not just one border. The mainstream media wants you to think that it's the southern border, but Canada borders Idaho in the north, and we have two ocean borders. And you know, all I do is I hear of reports of illegal aliens, 60,000. Whether or not that's true or not, I have no clue. But my wife did witness a van pulling up to our local mall, and a group of people got out of the van with suitcases in hand, walked over to the tree, picked up a cell phone, and made another phone call. And as the driver of the van started driving off, he picked up the phone and made a phone call. And you know, you can do conspiracy theories, you can drum up anything you want in your head, and I realize that, but it's just very suspicious that you're sitting at the local mall and van pulls up and people jumping out with suitcases, and the van pulls off. And of course, the rising budget seems to be nonstop. Government spending, government overreach is a concern.
With regarding the illegal immigration this year, there were two memorials that went through the legislature. One of them was really harsh. It called out Idaho's ag industry and other industries for essentially aiding and abetting illegal immigration because they want more migrant labor. And it
Was
called
that the House or the Senate one?
that was the House one, the one that did not pass. And the one that did pass came from the point of view that we need more migrant labor, so we need to actually reform the system to allow more people in. And I can say it implicitly called for amnesty because it didn't say, you know, it didn't call to do anything about the at least 35,000, if not more, illegal aliens who are employed here. And during those debates, a lot of Eastern Idaho legislators got up and said, if you enforce the border, if you cut off migration, if you don't reform the visa system, and if you deport the illegal aliens, then it'll crash the economy. We're not going to have any food to eat. What's your stance on that? Can we enforce the border without also, you know, completely throwing our economy for a loop?
There was some real interesting debates about immigration on the House floor. I didn't pay much attention to the Senate side. This past session, I was trying real hard to get educated on how the House sat, and not every day, but almost every day that they were in session, I did watch it. And there was some good there was some good debate. One thing that I took offense to was when contractors were accused of hiring illegal immigrants, and the representative that was there was really insulting to me, because I personally can't hire illegal immigrants without either the H program or them having a work visa. And the thought of other industries trying to work under the table, or whatever you want to call it, just is not legal. It's not correct. There's a proper method to get out of country workers here to work those industries that use them, and they need to go through the proper channels.
Mm-hmm. So what's the role of the Idaho State Legislature in that? Because a lot of this is federal stuff, right?
The real problem, though, is what's carrying on at the borders, and that is federal. That is federal, handled by the administration. They've done an absolutely poor job of enforcing the border. But Idaho it's illegal in Idaho to hire anybody. So Idaho has to enforce the rules of illegal immigrants and being able to work. I cannot write a check, a paycheck to an employee. I had back in 2021 migration of to Idaho, we had a huge influx of people coming from the blue states, California, Oregon, Washington, high influx of people. And employment was a huge problem. I was employing people sight unseen. I do the interviews over the phone. I would ask the proper questions. I'd require them to come in and provide me proof of their citizenship or the H program. Um, and I actually had one person that came to work one day and was going to come that night to fill out all the paperwork. He never came to the office, filled out the paperwork, never showed up, because I did follow up with him before the business day was over and said, don't forget, you have to come in and fill out the paperwork. He never showed up. He didn't work the full day. And, you know, if he wants to come show me the legal documents, I'm more than happy to pay him for that day of wage. But he never even came up and asked for that day of wage.
Hmm.
So the laws that are in place have to remain in place to enforce those rules. There should be no room for illegal immigrants to have work unless there's a proper path for it.
Shifting gears a bit, one of the issues I've heard a lot from people throughout the state is about taxes, especially property taxes. Everybody looks to the legislature to fix it, but it's a tough, complex issue because property taxes are essentially a local thing. It's cities, counties, school districts, fire districts, libraries, cemeteries, all those organizations, they levy the property taxes to do whatever it is they need to do. Uh, Obviously, the legislature passed a bill last year that, gave a little bit money back to homeowners. This year, they, shifted some school facilities funding over to sales tax with the idea that schools won't have to do as many levies, and that should be some property tax relief. What more do you think the legislature can do, and what kind of things would you support?
That is a real tough question. I think it's
Yeah.
government. I think it's state overreach. Tell you the truth, the um, I'm very aware of property taxes. I own a few commercial buildings in the city of Idaho Falls, and so I get a protest my property taxes plus my residents almost on an annual basis. And you're 100% correct. The county assesses what your business or your house real estate is worth. And then they come up with their budget.
Mhm.
If you're within a jurisdiction like Idaho Falls or Ammon, they submit their budget to the county, and the county assesses a mill levy. A mill levy then tells you what your tax is on on your residence or your building. And when those funds are collected, then it's split up to fund the jurisdiction or the county. And then you have your bonds and levies and your fire departments, your first responders, and all that's all tied up in your property taxes. The farce that the state gave everybody a property tax credit just completely blows my mind. The state receives zero funds from your property taxes, absolutely none. And I actually believe it was a political scheme to make people believe that the state was doing a good thing by reducing your property taxes when they were actually just collecting taxes from, like, maybe the grocery tax that everybody's been wanting to get repealed, or some excess tax that we've had over the past year, and claim property taxes. And it was completely misled, completely out of character. The Idaho has no collections on that. Now, I did learn something just recently, and you may have to correct me on this. Again, Brian, I'm an unpolished politician. I'm uneducated. I'm learning extremely fast. And when I don't know something, I ask questions. And if I don't know a question that you ask me, I just simply tell you I don't know and educate me on it. My campaign team hates me saying that, but I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up the voters' skirts that I know something when I don't. So if I remember correctly, it was either last year or the year before, the state changed the homeowners exemption to a maximum of 225,000. And I believe the legislature had that power to do that. I may have my numbers off there, but as far as I'm aware, that's the only power that the state has on property taxes at all.
I believe the homeowner's exemption is 125,000.
125.
But and even that being obviously that helps homeowners, especially lower income homeowners. However, all it's not really a tax break, it's just a tax shift because those county and other taxing districts, those budgets have to be paid somewhere, so they'll just end up taking more, relatively speaking, from businesses.
Yep.
And then so
And so
I've heard people
we
criticize it for that.
Bonneville County has been going through and reassessing the everybody's residence and everybody's commercial buildings. And this is kind of a split ticket for me. And the assessor and I got in a really long argument about jumping from what it was last year to what they're assessing this year. One of the problems the county has is they have not kept up with what your residence or your business real estate has appreciated because it's gone up so quickly. And to be in all fairness, the jurisdictions have to circle around however they do on their rotation basis and concentrate on trying to get your assessed value to what market value is. Every time I go in and complain about them raising my taxes, the assessor says, well, would you sell that building for that price? And obviously the answer I have to say is no, because it's been appraised for so low and they're still not assessing it for what current market value is. And I had a building that went up like 2,000% last year. And the maybe it was 2 years ago, the assessor and I were sitting here arguing back and forth, just saying, this isn't right. We're going to have to go to the commissioners over this one. Jumping up 2,000% just flat out is not acceptable to me. And the assessor sitting here trying to explain to me a mill levy concept, and he and I just are not communicating. He's talking German and I'm talking Russian, and we just are not communicating. And his assistant comes out and puts a piece of paper in front of me, and she goes, Brett, you need to calm down and listen. Here's what your building's assessed at. Here's what we think the mill levy's going to be. I think your taxes are going to actually be less this coming year than they were last year. And I looked down and I looked up at her and I said, I am just a thick-headed knucklehead. In fact, it's interesting that you bring this up because the assessor and I bumped in, he's now retired, but he and I bumped into church this past Sunday, and we were joking about the whole interaction there.
Even so, I mean, all taxes disincentivize something. So you have property taxes where you can buy a house and then spend your money and your time and your energy fixing it up, making it worth more, it's assessed more, and so your reward for all that is to pay higher taxes. It disincentivizes things, I think, but I mean, we got to pay for the government services that everybody wants somehow.
And being a builder and a developer, there's a concept that goes on, a saying that goes on, that development doesn't pay for itself. And I'm here to tell you that at least the local people, they pay for the roads, they pay for the sewer, they pay for the infrastructure around the property that they own. We have a subdivision that is going on north of Idaho Falls right now, and I'm going to get the mileage wrong, I'm going to get the footage wrong. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we had to bring in approximately a mile and a half of water and sewer. We had to widen 2 different roads because our subdivision based on that. And so the developers do help build in infrastructure. Now, if other developments hook on to that water and sewer within 10 years, the city charges them a hookup fee, and I will get a credit back on it. But that was an expense directly out of our pocket.
Well, coming from that perspective as a, developer, home builder, one of the issues that everybody talks about as well is growth. Everybody wants to move to Idaho, so we're, developing new lands, and pushing the wilderness, pushing the frontier back further and further. That's something we face here. My home city of Eagle just annexed a massive chunk of land up to the north that was once, just the foothills for recreation and hiking, and now it's going to be development. And people get frustrated, but at the same time, what are you going to do? It's private property. They can do with it what they want, and you just have to, you know, integrate it as best as you can. So what would you say about that, about all the, the growth and people's concerns about it?
Migration to Idaho is still coming. It has definitely slowed down from the COVID pandemic 2020 era when California, Oregon, Washington was extremely locked down and people couldn't go do anything. But we are still receiving the out-of-state people, and we need to welcome them. There's reports out there that water is a hot topic in Idaho, as you know.
Mhm.
The water users are using between 2 and 3% of water in the aquifer is a number that I've seen. And so if you convert that to what's carrying on with the development and the actual mass area of lands that Idaho still has, we have plenty of natural forest, natural area to still enjoy, which I go and do frequently. But the metropolitan areas have their master plan of how things are developed. And if people, they have that out for public comment, which the public can come in and be in favor of or disapprove of and voice their opinion. So the amount of acres that are getting developed has to continue to happen. We have to be able to accept new residents to Idaho and create the areas for the new residents. I think the last report I saw, Idaho was still in top 3 or 4% of the nation of people moving out of state to Idaho.
Yeah. And it's created a bit of a political tension because you have people coming from blue states who say, hey, I know what it looks like when a state starts going blue, and so I want to stop it here. But then you have people who've lived here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations, who say, don't bring your out-of-state problems here. Idaho's different. I think both groups want the same thing, because whether you've lived here multiple generations or you just moved here, there's something special about this place, and that's why everyone's come here. Uh, so
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
the political conversation about people moving from the blue states to Idaho is pretty interesting, though, Brian. I have had more than one conversation where, well, let's just pick on California. A resident from California, I've built a handful of homes for California immigrants, and they flat out tell me that Republican is extremely clouded. What the definition of a Republican is very confusing in Idaho. They hear we're a red state. They're moving from the blue states to Idaho because it's supposedly a conservative state. And when they get here, they are extremely disappointed with how murky the waters are. District Freedom, I was on Freedom Bros,
Mhm.
to be transparent. You were on there also. After I got off, Dustin pulled up a report, and I believe it was quoted from IFF, and he stated that they're east of Twin Falls. There were four legislatures that was in good standings with IFF, which means they were above a C or more. And I actually haven't looked up the scorecards of these four to see where they scored, but help me out with the one in Twin Falls. Zetterberg,
Senator Zeiderfeld.
Satterfeld, thank you. Kevin Andrus, which is District 35 seat A in the House. Julianne Young from Blackfoot and Barb Hart from Idaho Falls. And according to what Dustin mentioned, everybody else has a grade lower than a D, which reflects that they are not voting conservatively. And Eastern Idaho is not a ruby red area. And that is not just Southeast Idaho. It's just like Dustin said, it is from Twin Falls, all of Southeast Idaho.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. I think there's been a debate going on within the Republican Party here over, I think at the heart, it's the role of government. Uh, you get folks from, say, North Idaho, what we would call very conservative. They believe that the role of government is to protect your life, liberty, and property, and that's it. Stay out of business, public education, it's in the Constitution, so we have to do it, but it shouldn't be so overbearing, maybe. Uh, Whereas in Eastern Idaho, my sense is that a lot of the elected officials believe that there is a role for government, that there are things it can and should do. So I guess my question is for you, where do you draw that line? How how do you make that reflect what the voters in your district are looking for out of government? Do you think that there are just too many people who have that view that government is a necessary part of a lot of areas of life?
One of the books that I was that suggested that I read when I jumped into this was the 5,000 Year League. Very easy read. Um, it just gives you a basic 101 of government. And it quotes a lot of founding fathers' statements, Federalist Papers, so on and so forth. Then, wow, my mind just went blank. Thomas Jefferson. Man, this is part of my script, Brian.
Sorry.
Quoted the main form of government should be held at the local jurisdiction. Back then it was called townships. So each local jurisdiction should be the number one jurisdiction practice, with pure overreach of even the county, pure overreach of the state, and pure overreach of the federal government. Our budget right now consists of over 40% of federal funds. Another 8 or 9%, we're no longer a sovereign state, we're a welfare state. People keep asking me, well, what's your agenda? What are you going to go do? And well, how about let's repeal? Let's start repealing some laws. Let's make life more simple. The days of I understand the days of my dad walking into a building department with a hand drawing on a napkin and trying to get a building permit are long gone, and I'm full support of that. But to where we're at today and the overreach of building codes and trying to make everything the same across the entire nation on a building code is just ridiculous. Idaho did pass a few years ago, I'm not going to remember the year that we are no longer following the Uniform Builder Code. We're following a state building code that's basically addressed around the Uniform Building Code. But we've had such a demand in Idaho Falls, especially for multifamily, that it has been taking over a year to get a commercial building permit. And that's where the multifamilies that's where their code is cited, and that's where the building permit's drawn. And by the time I get plans drawn, 6 months for a building permit, estimate put together, and able to start the project, it's 12, 14, even 16 months. Before 2020, before the mad rush to Idaho, the building code side was taking about 6 weeks, and they had such an influx of building permits and government rules and regulations that everybody had to get up to speed on, that it backlogged architects, engineers, building departments, and everything. And so let's start repealing some stuff and bringing it right down to the responsibility of local governments.
Yeah, that's when you're talking about the original conception of the role of governments, yeah, I mean, as a citizen, we're supposed to have a, connection with our city and municipal governments. We shouldn't be micromanaged by an army of bureaucrats while operating out of Washington, D.C., but that's the direction we're going. And I, I don't see any way to stop it. It's become that big Leviathan, that blob that's taken over everything. Uh, is there a way in the legislature to, you know, claw back a little bit of our sovereignty without, I mean, if 40%
Here,
of our budget's taken from the federal government, something's got to give.
here's the way to do it, Brian. It is to take the chance on the unpolished politician like myself. It's a chance right now. Here's what's at stake this election. Right now, East Idaho is purple, and I'm going to say it's leading more blue as far as our representatives. They don't vote conservative. They're for big government, big business, government overreach, and it's starting to get in the mindsets of the people. I'm having conversations with people. Well, what can the state do for me? And that's just been a switch in the last handful of years. We need to, Eastern Idaho has to be aware of who our representatives are, how they're voting, and either say that you're fine with the way that the government's being ran right now, and letting big business, and I'm telling you, big business, big pharma, they're in the pockets of our current legislatures. So if that's the way that Eastern Idaho wants to remain, keep the existing legislatures. If East Idaho wants to take a chance on the new guy, the unpolished politician, the guy that gets his own script, the guy that has a ton of learning to do, that is going to lean on his political friends that know stuff, the voters of Eastern Idaho have to take a chance on the Kelly Goldens, the Brett Skidmores, and those who haven't dipped their toe in politics. When they say they're going to be conservative, I know all the other politicians have promised you the same thing, but if you don't like the way the government is, it's time to take a chance on the new blood that's coming through. We have candidates right now running in every race in Eastern Idaho that is extremely Christian based and who I believe is far more conservative than our current legislature. And the voters need to step out of their comfort zone and take a chance on the new guy. I'm a new guy. I don't know much about politics. Every day I watch the House floor, I learn something new. And I'm telling you, I have hardly even touched the tip of the iceberg. I have much more to learn.
I'm glad you mentioned big business because that's where I was going to go next. Uh, Speaking of this debate in the Republican Party, one of them is over, what role does big business have in the political discussion? You go back a couple decades, back to the Reagan era, and almost all Republicans supported business because it was the alternative to big government. And we're capitalists. We believe in the free market, free enterprise, so we're not going to support central planning and government regulation. But now I see a lot more skepticism in conservative Republicans toward big business, and it's vice versa as well. The Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry, IACI, they've long wielded considerable influence in the legislature. This is the first year I've seen them start endorsing Democrats. I could be wrong; they could have done it in the past, but that shows that their agenda is not necessarily the conservative agenda, yet their voice still carries a lot. I'm looking at your Sunshine Report. You've raised quite a bit of money, but you've raised 3 times as much from people than from businesses, whereas your opponent has raised half again as much from businesses as from people. So the business community is taking a very active role in politics, and it's not necessarily in support of conservative values.
Let me be very clear about the businesses that donated to me. They are not big businesses. I probably do have a couple that might be considered big businesses, but majority of my businesses are construction companies. They're blue collar workers that decided to write a check out of their business company instead of a business company. And if you look at most of the incumbents, you're going to see the exact opposite. You're going to see Pfizer, Bear, you're going to see all of these big businesses that are supporting our at least the eastern Idaho area in their donations. And here's what I have. Here's all I can do is give you an example of my experience with big business. To be upfront, Blue Cross, I own a retail center. Blue Cross rents to me, and they are in support of the other candidate, the incumbent. And I'm not mouthing my tenants at all. But there's a lot less bureaucracy in the leases with the small businesses than there is with big businesses. And I'm not picking on just one of them. I'm picking on most of the corporate companies that bring me a lease. Their leases are much more in-depth. They're much more harder to follow and to comply with. And the mom and pop, the blue collar people, just want to go to work. They want to make a living. They want to pay their bills. They want to have the American dream of business ownership, home ownership, and it is getting extremely tough to do so.
Mhm.
So let's simplify life. Let's revert to 10 years ago. Let's repeal laws. Let's make life more simple. Let's get that conservative voice back out there.
Well, I have appreciated your time. Are there any other issues that that are important to you that we haven't covered? I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours about things.
We didn't talk in depth about school funding.
Yeah.
Like we did go visit with the homeschoolers, and there's been a couple of bills that have been up this session. One of the mothers said, I don't want government to tell me that I can't go buy a paddleboard and take my children to a lake and do physical ed on a paddleboard instead of go playing dodgeball in a gym. And so the conversation of following the money, if you want to know my position on that,
Sure.
we need to allow money to follow the children. How that's done, I don't know. Maybe we don't tax homeschool students. Maybe I'm not sure that I have a clear path in my mind of how that goes. Bonneville School District 93 receives approximately $7,200 per student. My understanding, it varies even within schools in each school district, but that full amount ought to be credited to the parent to teach their child the way they want. The BS that's carrying on around the nation about CRT, LGBTQ, so on and so forth, that indoctrination that's happening in schools, there is no chance that ought to be happening in East Idaho. And I am 100% totally against any of that. And so I hear porn in the libraries. I've seen it. I'm to the point to tell my kids to take my grandkids and homeschool them, just so they don't get exposed to all the stuff I just spoke about. So the school districts need to protect our children, need to help protect our children with Idaho values.
Well, there was a tax credit bill that failed in a House committee last session. Um, would you support something like that, a tax credit for private school or for homeschooling expenses or things like that?
I'm not sure I'm real thrilled on a tax credit. April 15th, you get a tax credit. So I understand it's like a drop of water in a lake. It all goes into the same checking account, but the funds, you're at the end of the school year in April, and the funds that you need are really, in the fall, not the spring, when school starts. So I'm not sure that was a great approach.
Well, like you said, something has to give, right?
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a closing statement for voters, for people outside your district who are watching and seeing what you can do?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Brett Skidmore, District 35 seat B. Like I said, I am in all 5 counties. Bonneville, Teton, Bear Lake, Caribou, and part of Bannock, 5,500 square miles. I do have events that are still scheduled from now till election day. What is it, 22, 21 days till election. I am doing phone calls. I am doing personal appearances. You can follow me on my Facebook, Brett Skidmore for Idaho. I do post all of my events that we're doing. Teton County, I'm coming your way tomorrow. Love for you to join. Tomorrow probably won't even be seen by then, will you? Probably won't even post this by then. So that is May 1st. So that will be come and gone. But brettskidmore.com is my website. We have great little video that we produced on that. Again, if you like the way government is set up, representing Eastern Idaho, don't take a chance on the unpolished politician. If you want to take a chance on me telling you that I'm going to be conservative, I'm sick and tired of big government. I'm sick and tired of big business. I'm sick and tired of overspending. I'm sick and tired of more government and overreach. Take a chance on the unpolished politician. Take a chance on me telling you I'm going to be conservative. Brett Skidmore for Idaho this coming 21st. Appreciate your vote.
Brett Skidmore running for House of Representatives, District 35, Seat B. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.